The first sound I remember is the ice singing. Not the cheerful crackle of winter rivers or the playful chime of icicles in the wind, but a deep, aching note that thrummed through the walls of my prison and into my bones. The ice wall was alive, the elders said, woven by the moon goddess herself. It breathed with the kingdom, pulsed with old magic, and hummed whenever I pressed my palm against it, as if it knew I didn't belong here. I was born behind this wall. I've never seen the Alpha King's throne hall, never felt moonlight on my bare skin without glass and frost between us. I know the kingdom only through echoes, distant howls rolling over the mountains, bells from the village at festival time, the muffled roar of crowds when a rival Alpha visits the castle. The ice wall keeps me hidden from all of it, hidden Omega, hidden bloodline, hidden fate. The guards call this tower the Frostkeep. I call it my skyless world. Tonight, though, the ice sings differently. The note is sharper, edged with warning. I sit on the fur pallet near the narrow window slit, my cloak wrapped tight, watching snow swirl outside like slow-burning ash. The crescent moon hangs low over the distant pines, silver and watchful, and the hair along my arms rises with a shiver that isn't from the cold. Something is coming. I can feel it through my bond mark. Faint and unfinished though it is, a pale spiral over my wrist that the healers failed to erase when I was an infant. They tried salt, iron, and bitter herbs. They whispered a forbidden prophecy, of a Luna heir who would topple the laws of the Pack Council if she ever met her fated mate. In the end, they settled on the ice wall instead. Hide the Omega, hide the threat. I curl my fingers over the bond mark, tracing its soft glow. Outside, a wolf's howl splits the night. Deep, commanding, threaded with a power that makes my lungs forget how to work. It echoes off the mountains, rolls over the Frostkeep, rattles the iron rings on my door. That isn't a guard. That's an Alpha. My heart stutters. I lean closer to the slit, breath fogging the stone. Snow, darkness, the distant silhouette of the main castle, its towers rising like black fangs. On the highest balcony, a figure stands bareheaded in the storm, fur cloak flaring around broad shoulders. Even from here, I feel the weight of his gaze sweep the horizon like a blade. The Alpha King. My mother's voice whispers from memory, soft and haunted. If he ever finds you, Elara, the bond will answer. And when it does, the laws we stole from the moon goddess will crack like thin ice. Down in the courtyard, torches flare. The ice wall thrums under my hand. For the first time in my life, I wonder if the Alpha King comes to unleash the kingdom's wrath. Will he sense the Omega born behind his wall? Or will destiny let me stay hidden a little longer? My jailer is late with my meal. That seems like nothing, but in the Frostkeep, routine is sacred. When you're locked away from birth, you learn the rhythm of small things, the tread of guards on the stairs, the rattle of keys, the scrape of a bowl across stone. Anything out of place feels like a storm about to break. I pace the tower room, bare feet whispering over cold flagstones. The air smells of pine, iron, and distant smoke from the village chimneys. My wolf form stirs restlessly under my skin, pacing the length of my ribs, claws flexing. Something's wrong, she murmurs, a soft growl at the edge of my mind. The pack is restless. The Alpha's howl is new. Strong. Fated. Fated for who? I whisper. She doesn't answer. Wolves obey the moon goddess before they obey fear. At last, bootsteps climb the stairs, more than one pair. Not my usual guard, whose limp makes the stone creak in a particular way, but heavier tread, faster, like they're carrying urgency up each step. I retreat from the door, heart thudding, fingers curling into my fur cloak. The locks clank, one after another. The iron door groans open. My regular guard, Bram, squeezes through first, cheeks wind-burned, eyes wide. Behind him, two warriors in the Alpha King's colors. Black and silver, snow dusting their shoulders, wolf sigils gleaming on their breastplates. All three bow their heads, not to me but to the figure who fills the doorway last. He doesn't have to announce himself. Power walks in before him. The Alpha King steps into my skyless world as if he's always owned it. He's taller than I imagined from the stories, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a heavy fur-lined coat over dark leather and steel. Snow still clings to his hair, which is dark and slightly tousled by the storm. His scent hits me first, pine, winter rain, and something warmer underneath, like amber light on fur. His silver eyes sweep the room once, assessing, before locking onto me. The ice wall hums. My bond mark burns. I can't move. The world narrows to the space between us, to the steady rise and fall of his chest, to the way his jaw tightens when his gaze drops to my exposed wrist. To the glowing spiral no one has touched in years. The Alpha King inhales sharply, as if someone punched the air from his lungs. "Leave us," he says, voice low and edged with command. "My king," one warrior begins. "Now." A growl lies under the word, a shifter's warning. The torches flicker. The warriors obey. Bram lingers for a heartbeat, eyes flicking between us with something like pity. "Forgive me, girl," he mutters under his breath, then retreats and shuts the door. The locks grind back into place, sealing the Alpha King inside my prison with me. For a long breath, we just stare at each other, the space between us thick with tension and old magic. "You are Elara," he says at last. Not a question. A sentence. I swallow. My voice feels rusty from disuse. "And you are trespassing in my ice wall." A faint, surprised huff, almost a laugh, ghosts over his lips. It makes something warm flicker in my chest, against my will. "The ice wall is mine," he says. "As is the Frostkeep. As is every stone of this kingdom. Including the ones they thought would hide you from me." He steps closer, and with every stride, my wolf presses harder against my skin, tail high, ears forward. The bond mark flares like moonfire, spiraling up my arm. Panic claws my throat. "No," I whisper, backing into the curve of the frosted window. "You can't be here. The Pack Council. The Pack Council has lied to me for 20 years. His voice cuts like a blade through packed snow. "They told me the prophecy was prevented. That the moon goddess's chosen mate for the Alpha King was never born." His gaze drops again to my wrist, to the mark glowing brighter with each heartbeat. "But they forgot one thing about prophecy, little Omega," he murmurs. "It always finds a way through the ice." The room tilts, just a fraction, as his words slide under my skin. "Mate." The word is a live coal on my tongue, one every Omega is taught to fear and crave in equal measure. We whisper it in secret stories about moon goddess blessings and fated bonds, about alphas who'd tear down kingdoms to protect their lunas. But my stories were always followed by stern warnings. Some bonds are forbidden. Some mates are too dangerous to be allowed. I press my wrist to my chest, trying to smother the glow. "There has been a mistake," I say, though my voice trembles. "I am nothing. A ghost behind a wall. The elders hid me because they were cowards." He snaps, silver eyes flashing. "Because they carved laws to protect their power instead of honoring the moon goddess's will. Because they knew that if I found you, I would claim what was mine." The word claim sends a shiver down my spine, half fear, half something else I refuse to name. He stops an arm's length away. The air between us crackles. I can see the faint ring of his own bond mark peeking from under the leather bracer on his forearm, a mark that has waited, apparently, as long as mine has. "Look at me, Elara," he says softly. My gaze has been locked on his collar, where fur meets metal, but the command in his tone lifts my chin. Our eyes meet, and the world rearranges itself. It's not dramatic, not like the stories where lightning strikes and wolves shift uncontrollably. It's quieter. A subtle click, like a lock finally turning after years of rust. A steady warmth spreading from chest to fingertips. The feeling of recognition so profound it almost hurts. Oh, the moon goddess was cruel to make us strangers for so long. He exhales slowly, as if he, too, has been holding this breath for 20 years. "There you are," he whispers. The scent was already driving me insane from the courtyard. Frost and wildflowers. I thought the ice wall itself had begun to bleed magic. Heat flushes my cheeks. No one has ever described my scent before. No one has ever dared lean close enough. You shouldn't be here, I repeat, but the words have lost their sharp edges. If they find you, I am the Alpha King. A hint of humor touches his mouth. They cannot find me in my own tower. He closes the last of the distance, slow enough that I could flee to the far wall if I chose. I don't. My wolf has gone quiet, perfectly still, watching him with bright eyes from behind my ribs. Tell me, he says, voice dropping, did you think I would never come? The question steals my breath. I never allowed myself to think anything about him, not out loud. But at night, when the ice wall sang its lonely song and the crescent moon poured silver through the slit window, I imagined a figure in the distance, a wolf with silver eyes, a man who smelled like pine and storm. I imagined his hull carrying my name without knowing he had one to give me. No, I admit, the word a cloud of fog between us. I thought you would come too late. His jaw tightens. Too late for what? To keep them from using me. My fingers curl around the stone sill. The council. The rival alphas. The blood moon rights. You know the prophecy. They think if they control your mate, they control you. The heir, the throne, the whole kingdom. A muscle jumps in his cheek. I will never be controlled. Then why did you let them lock me away? The question bursts out before I can stop it, raw and sharp. Why did you let them build an ice wall around a child and pretend she didn't exist? Silence. Outside, the wind howls over the Frostkeep. Inside, the Alpha King lowers his head, and for the first time, I see something like regret shadow his eyes. Because I didn't know, he says quietly. Because they swore on the moon goddess's name that the threat had been dealt with before I ever took the throne. And because I believed them. His gaze drifts to the frost-rimed stones, his voice hoarse. Every blood moon, my wolf howled for something I couldn't find. I thought I was cursed. His eyes find mine again, blazing. I won't make that mistake again. He reaches for my wrist. His fingers brush my skin, and the bond mark flares with a light that outshines the torch on the wall. I gasp, the sensation too much, heat and cold at once, like plunging into a frozen rivulet from beneath by fire. The spiral of pale light races up my arm, blooming across my ribs, spreading toward my heart. I feel it mirrored in him. His own mark burns through the leather of his bracer, silver lines pulsing to the rhythm of our shared heartbeat. We are shifters. We know our own bodies. But this is something else. A whisper threads through the air, softer than the wind yet heavy with ancient weight. Faded. A voice I don't know and yet have always known, the distant, timeless murmur of the moon goddess. The Alpha King's eyes flutter shut for a heartbeat. When he opens them, they're brighter, the silver ringed with molten steel. Say my name, he murmurs. I swallow. Of course I know it. Every story, every whispered rumor about the throne hall, every frightened guard who's cursed him under his breath has taught it to me. Kael, I say, the syllable tasting strange and right. Alpha King Kael of the Crescent Moon Pack. His mouth curves. You forgot your mate. I yank my hand back as if burned. We haven't completed anything. I protest, though my pulse is still tripping over itself. The bond, this could be a trick of the ice wall, or some spell, or... Elara. My name in his voice is a command wrapped in velvet. You feel it. Don't lie to me or to yourself. I do feel it. A constant hum beneath my skin, a rope binding chest to chest, a sense of where he is even if I closed my eyes and turned away. My wolf, who has never bowed to a single soul in this Frostkeep, has lowered her head in quiet recognition. Mate. But another word stands beside it, sharp as a blade, weapon. The council will not allow this. I say, forcing steadiness into my voice. They built the ice wall because of the prophecy. When the Alpha King's mate is revealed, the old laws will fall, and the packs will tremble. They like their laws, Kael. They like their power. They like you bound by rules they wrote. I am not bound, he growls. The torch flame jumps, reacting to the spark of his temper. You are, I insist softly. Every Alpha is. Pack law, royal duty, bloodline politics. They will use me to chain you tighter. I meet his gaze. Unless you leave now. Pretend you never found me. Let the bond wither, and I will stay behind the ice wall where no one can touch you through me. The words taste like ash. My wolf whines press flat, but I force them out anyway. Protecting the Alpha King protects the kingdom. That's what my mother said the last night I saw her before they dragged her away for helping me breathe through the ice walls first forming. Kael steps closer, invading my desperate logic. You would sacrifice yourself to keep me free? He asks, studying my face as if he can read every thought. I was born to be a sacrifice, I say, and hate how true it feels. For a long heartbeat, he just looks at me. Then, slowly, his expression hardens. Not cruel, but resolute, like ice setting after a thaw. Listen carefully, Elara, he says. I did not cross rogue-infested borders, defy the Pack Council, and tear down half the fortress wards just to walk away from my Omega because a few cowards fear change. He turns toward the ice wall that curves around part of the tower like a living glacier. Frost glows faintly where his shadow falls. I am the Alpha King, he continues, voice rising, resonant with the power of his wolf. My laws are not chains. They are oaths. And I swear on the moon goddess and on this bond mark. He rips the leather bracer from his arm, letting his own spiraled mark blaze free. That I will never use you as a weapon or let anyone else try. He places his bare palm against the ice wall. The tower shudders. I've pressed my hand to that ice 1,000 times and felt only its cold, humming indifference. Under Kael's touch it roars. Light bursts along the veins of frost, running in jagged lines up the curve of the wall, across the ceiling, down to the floor. The song changes from a lonely hum to a wild, joyous howl that vibrates in my teeth. My wolf surges forward, pressing at the edges of my skin, desperate to join the sound. Kael, what are you doing? My voice shakes. Calling in a debt, he grits out. Muscles bunch under his coat. His silver eyes glow brighter, wolf close to the surface now. The ice wall was woven by the moon goddess to shield a Luna heir from those who would twist prophecy. It is not meant to cage her forever. His words slam into me. Luna heir? I echo. No. I'm just. You are my mate. That makes you future Luna by blood and by bond. His fingers dig into the ice, leaving deep impressions that steam in the frigid air. The wall may have grown used to your fear, Elara, but it answers to me too. To us. The ice wall doesn't crack. It melts. Not in the way of spring, dripping slowly. It dissolves in a rush of glittering vapor, turning to mist and light that swirl around us in a glowing storm. Cold air knifes in through the suddenly exposed stone arch where the wall once stood. Snowflakes whirl on the wind, carried in from the open sky. For the first time in my life, the tower room has a doorway to the world. I stagger back, dizzy. The sudden openness is overwhelming. Beyond the arch, the full expanse of the kingdom stretches out under the night. Forest heavy with snow, the main castle with its lit windows, the village nestled like a cluster of warm embers at the mountain's foot. The scent of pine and hearth smoke rushes in, rich and wild and real. Kael turns back to me, mist clinging to his hair like a crown. Your cage is broken, he says simply. Come with me. The words I've wanted to hear all my life feel heavier than I imagined. Leaving this tower doesn't just mean fresh air and open ground. It means stepping into prophecy's teeth, into a throne hall full of eyes, into the hands of a Pack Council that has spent 2 decades pretending I'm dead. I can't, I whisper, even as every part of me strains toward the open arch. His brows draw together. You would stay here, With the wall gone and the sky waiting because of them? I would stay because of what they'll do to you, I say. Kael, the Council controls the pack alliances, the trade routes, the treaties with rival alphas. If they think I've bewitched you, they'll divide the kingdom. Rogue wolves already sniff at our borders whenever there's weakness. This, I gesture to the vanished wall. This is weakness to them. Disobedience. They will call you lawbreaker. He steps closer, the storm at his back, the scent of snow and wolf wrapping around me like a second cloak. I would rather be a lawbreaker than a coward who lets his mate rot behind ice, he says. Let them howl their outrage. Let the rival alphas circle. I'll meet them in wolf form beneath the blood moon if I must. But you will not die in this tower for their comfort, Elara. My throat tightens. No one has ever spoken about my life as if it mattered more than politics. The bond pulses between us, urgent and insistent. My wolf presses against my ribs, eyes bright. We run, she whispers. We were not born for stone. I look past Kael, out into the swirling snow, to the castle and beyond. Destiny waits out there somewhere, sharp-edged and dazzling. Love, too, perhaps, if I dare to reach for it. Or ruin. Slowly, I extend my hand. Then take me, I say, voice small but steady. But promise me this, Alpha King, if the kingdom must burn to keep me, you'll let me go instead. His fingers close around mine, warm and sure. No, he says. If the kingdom must burn, we'll rebuild it together. The stairwell below the Frostkeep smells of dust, old fear, and astonishment. Every guard we pass stares as if I'm a ghost stepping out of legend. Maybe I am. Wrapped in a spare fur cloak Kael brought, my bare feet whisper over the stone steps behind him. His hand never leaves mine. The contact is an anchor and a blaze, steadying my dizzy steps as my world expands with every level we descend. Banners I've only glimpsed from a distance now hang overhead, rich with the crescent moon sigil of our pack. Torches flicker along the walls, their smoke curling up into vaulted arches. The ice wall's absence hums in my bones, like a missing tooth my tongue keeps prodding. Keep your head up, Kael murmurs as we pass two wide-eyed warriors who flatten themselves against the wall. You are not a prisoner walking to judgment. You are the Omega, the moon goddess hid in my own fortress. Let them see who they tried to erase. I lift my chin, though my heart is doing a frantic wolf run in my chest. What will you tell them? I ask. The council. The pack. How will you explain me? The truth, he says simply. That their Alpha King has finally found his mate, and that the moon goddess has little patience for lies. His confidence is a shield I try to hide behind. But in the quiet space between our words, doubts creep in like drafts. What if they don't accept me? I ask. I've never run with a pack. I've never shifted under the open sky. I don't know how to be a Luna. He glances back at me, something unexpectedly soft in his eyes. You know how to survive behind ice for 20 years and still speak to me with fire. That's more Luna than half the council combined. Heat warms my cheeks. He faces forward again, voice returning to its usual steady command as we near the base of the tower. The throne hall will be full, he warns. When I tore down the ice wall, the wards screamed. Every seer and guard dog within a mile felt it. They'll be waiting. For me. For us. For a prophecy they thought buried. Will you shift if they challenge you? I ask, imagining his wolf form, larger than any I've glimpsed from the slit window, coat dark as night, silver eyes glowing. If they're foolish enough, he says. But I'd prefer to fight them with words first. I'd rather not get blood on you your first night out of the tower. I manage a shaky laugh. Consider it. The last steps open into a wide corridor lined with tall windows. Moonlight pours over the stone floor like liquid silver. I pause, drawn inexorably toward the nearest window. My fingers press to the icy glass, and for the first time, nothing stands between me and the view but my own trembling courage. The forest stretches out beyond the castle walls, dark and inviting, snow-laden branches whispering in the wind. I imagine running between those trees, paws kicking up powder, breath steaming in the air. My wolf howls softly inside, aching. One night soon, Kael says quietly at my shoulder, as if hearing her. We'll go out there. Just us. No council, no guards. You can feel the moon on your fur for the first time. Emotion stings my eyes. You promise a lot of things, Alpha King. I intend to keep them. He squeezes my hand once, then nods toward the massive double doors at the end of the corridor. For now, we face this. 2 sentries stand rigid on either side of the doors, hands tight on their spear shafts. They eye me with barely concealed shock, but Kael's presence keeps their tongues still. With a gesture from him, they haul the doors open. The throne hall of the Crescent Moon Pack greets me like a held breath finally released. If the Frostkeep is a prison of stone and ice, the throne hall is a theater of power. High arches soar overhead, carved with wolves and crescent moons that shimmer in the torchlight. Tall windows let in slashes of silver, painting the flagstone floor in pale ribbons. Along the walls, braziers burn low, their embers casting a warm, restless glow. Banners hang between them, black and silver fabric heavy with the weight of generations of Alpha Kings. At the hall's far end, raised on broad stone steps, sits the throne. Dark wood inlaid with silver, shaped like a wolf's spreading wings. Empty now. The seat of a presence standing beside me instead. Between us and that throne, the hall is crowded. Warriors in armor. Nobles in fur-trimmed cloaks. Members of the Pack Council in their formal robes, crescent moon sigils glinting at their throats. Seers with white hair braided in intricate patterns. Every eye snaps toward us as the doors close behind. The air smells of torch smoke, wool, wolf, and something sharper. Fear. Whispers rustle like dry leaves. That's impossible. The prophecy. She was supposed to. Kael doesn't slow. His stride is steady, shoulders squared, grip firm on my hand. A path opens before him because no one dares block an Alpha King in his own hall. Still, I feel the weight of their stares like claws between my shoulder blades. Near the front, a cluster of elders stands stiff-backed, the Pack Council. I recognize some faces from the glimpses I caught through my window over the years. Lord Halvar, with his hooked nose and pinched mouth. Lady Morel, seer of the blood moon, eyes always half-lidded as if she dreams even while awake. Beta Roran, tall and scarred, Kael's second in command. It's Roran who steps forward first, eyes flicking from Kael to me and back. My king, he says carefully, voice carrying. The wards screamed. We felt the ice wall fall. And now you come with. His gaze catches on my glowing mark. Her has a name. Kael says, voice cool. Elara. The hall reacts as one, a ripple of shock. Some faces pale, others narrow their eyes, calculating. Lady Morel's fingers clench around the crescent staff she carries. She was dealt with, she says slowly, words like stones dropping into a frozen lake. Years ago, when the moon goddess's mark appeared. The child was a danger to the kingdom. The prophecy was clear. Apparently your memory is not, Kael replies. Because I have just walked out of the Frostkeep tower with that very child, now a woman, who has been imprisoned behind your precious ice wall since birth. A shocked murmur surges through the hall. My pulse hammers in my throat. For a moment, doubt flickers in a few counselors' eyes, as if they're truly surprised, as if they've believed their own lies for so long they forgot the truth. Lady Morel recovers first. If she lives, she says, gaze turning to me with the icy focus of a blade, it is because the moon goddess willed her containment rather than her death. The prophecy. Says what, exactly? Kael cuts in. Speak it aloud. Let the pack hear what you've buried under ice and secrecy. Her lips thin. Halvar shifts uneasy. Roran clears his throat. My king, perhaps this is not the time. It is precisely the time. Kael releases my hand only long enough to stride up the steps, turning to face the hall from halfway to the throne. He stands above them all, alpha aura rolling out like a storm front. The ice wall is gone, the wards are shattered, and my mate stands beside me. Hiding will not help you now. My heart skips. He said it. My mate. In front of everyone. Gasps. A few snarls. Somewhere, a wolf howls in shock from the courtyard below, answered by others. This is madness. Halvar hisses. To declare an unvetted Omega your mate, and a prophecy marked one at that. Unvetted? Kael's laugh is humorless. The moon goddess vetted her the day she was born. You simply tried to veto her choice. His gaze finds mine, and for a moment the hall falls away. Elara, he says, holding out his hand from the steps, offering not just fingers but place. Come stand where you should have stood all along. My legs wobble, but I move. With every step, the weight of history presses heavier on my shoulders. I can feel their judgments, their fear, their anger. I can also feel the faded bond stretching between us like a silver bridge, pulling me forward. When I reach him, he takes my hand, lifts it for all to see. Our matching bond marks glow in the torchlight, spirals of silver fire that mirror each other perfectly. The prophecy, Lady Moreau finally says, voice edged with reluctant obedience, speaks thus. When the Alpha King's hidden mate steps from behind the ice, the old laws will crack, and wolf and throne will bleed. The bond mark's glow will call blood moon and rival pack. And only by breaking what was sworn will the kingdom be remade or destroyed. A shiver runs through the hall. The words hang like frost in the air. Sounds to me, Kael says calmly, like a choice. He squeezes my hand. And I have made mine. The hall erupts. Voices crash into one another, fearful, furious, pleading. Warriors whisper of rogue wolves smelling weakness. Nobles fret over trade routes with neighboring packs. Somewhere near the back, a young shifter blurts. She's beautiful, and is promptly smacked by his mother. Through it all, Kael stands like a mountain in a storm, unshaken. I try to borrow some of his steadiness, but inside thoughts whirl. Hidden mate steps from behind the ice, only by breaking what was sworn. Every oath the council swore to control the kingdom now vibrates, ready to snap. Silence. Kael doesn't shout, but his voice carries with the weight of alpha command. The sound slices through the chaos. Wolves, human and otherwise, obey instinctively. The hall quiets. He turns slowly, taking in each face. You fear prophecy, he says. You fear that my mate's existence threatens your laws. Good. Laws should tremble when the moon goddess speaks. Halvar's mouth twists. You would throw away centuries of pack tradition for a woman you have known for less than an hour? I flinch. It's true. I barely know Kael beyond scent and bond and a handful of exchanged words. Yet the connection between us burns deeper than any conversation could justify. Kael doesn't flinch. I would throw away anything built on lies, he says. You did not tell me of her. You locked away a Luna heir without my knowledge, without even consulting the Alpha whose destiny she shares. That alone breaks more laws than you care to list. We acted to protect the kingdom. Morel insists, but there's a crack in her tone. The blood moon was approaching. Rival alphas already circle. The prophecy said. The prophecy said hidden mate. Kael interrupts. Not sacrifice child. My throat tightens. His fingers brush my wrist, a small grounding touch. Roran lifts his chin. What is your intention, my king? He asks, voice neutral. Loyal, but wary. You have revealed her. The ice wall is gone. There is no going back. The rival alphas will hear of this by dawn. Rogue wolves will sense upheaval. Do you mean to rewrite pack law overnight? Kael considers him. Unlike the others, his expression toward Roran holds no contempt, only a tired respect. I intend to begin, he says. starting with the law that allowed an Omega to be locked away on the Council's word alone. He looks out over the hall again. From this night forward, no Omega in the Crescent Moon Kingdom will be caged, traded, or silenced without the consent of the Alpha King and Luna both. Our bonds are not chains for your convenience. They are sacred threads woven by the Moon Goddess. Anyone who tries to cut them will answer to me. A murmur runs through the Omegas in the crowd, softer voices I hadn't noticed in the sea of warriors. Hope sparks there, tentative and bright. Halvar nearly chokes. You're mad, he sputters. Do you know how many alliances are sealed with Omega bonds? How many treaties rest on arranged matings? You would upset the entire balance of power. Perhaps the balance needed upsetting, Kael replies. His gaze drifts up to the carved wolves in the rafters, then back to the council. But I'm not a fool. I know this will draw fire. Rival alphas who treat their mates as trophies will see my stance as weakness. Rogue wolves will sense a chance to carve out territory. That is why we will prepare. He turns to me. Elara, he says, voice softening. I will not ask you to stand in the open if you do not wish it. But I will ask this, will you help me remake this kingdom? Not as a symbol behind ice, but as Luna at my side? My breath catches. Here it is, the fulcrum of everything. I could say no, retreat to a quieter corner of the castle, let him fight alone. He seems capable. He has been doing it for years. But that path leads back, in some way, to the Frostkeep, to being hidden, to letting fear write the laws. Or I could say yes. My wolf lifts her head, eyes bright. We were not born behind ice, she whispers. We were born from moonlight and howl and running beside our mate. I take a step forward, away from the safety of his side, closer to the edge of the steps where the whole hall can see me. A hush falls. I was born behind a wall built on your fear, I say, voice surprisingly steady. For years I breathed frost instead of sky because you were too afraid of a few lines from the Moon Goddess. I will not spend the rest of my life hiding so you can sleep easier. I feel Kael's presence at my back, silent, solid. You fear that I will break your laws, I continue. Perhaps I will. Some of them deserve to be broken. But I promise you this, I will never break the bond that holds this pack together. I will protect this kingdom not because you caged me, but because I chose to stay. I turn slightly, looking up at Kael. Our eyes meet, and something warm and fierce passes between us. If the Alpha King will have me, I say, I will stand beside him. As his mate. As his Luna. As the Omega you tried to erase. The hall holds its breath. Kael's hand finds my shoulder, fingers curling in silent pride. That, he says quietly, answers your question, Roran. Acceptance is not instantaneous. Some wolves bow their heads, relief softening their faces. Others narrow their eyes, calculating how this shift in power will affect their standing. A few storm from the hall in stiff-backed outrage, their cloaks flaring like torn banners behind them. Let them go. They have spent years drinking from the well of fear. It will take time to wean them from it. Roran inclines his head. If this is your will, my king, he says, then I will enforce it. But we must speak of strategy. The Blood Moon gathering is in 3 weeks. The rival alphas will be present in our very courtyard. They will not take kindly to news that you've upended Omega law and found a prophecy-marked mate besides. We'll speak in council at dawn, Kael says. And Elara will sit beside me. I nearly choke. What? I don't know anything about treaties or border patrols. You know what it's like to be the one the laws crush, he says. That perspective is worth more than half the ink in our records. Morel presses her lips together. If the Moon Goddess truly wills this, she will show us in signs, she says, a hint of challenge there. Until then, I reserve my official blessing. You may reserve what you like, Kael replies mildly. The Moon Goddess has already spoken. He takes my arm again, guiding us toward the side doors that lead to the royal wing. As we pass the front rows of the crowd, A young Omega woman with freckles and a simple cloak catches my eye. Her bond mark is faint, like mine used to be, half hidden beneath a leather string tied too tightly. She drops into a shaky curtsy. "My Luna," she whispers. The words hit me harder than prophecy. I stop, gently tugging my arm from Kael's grasp long enough to crouch a little so I'm closer to her eye level. "What's your name?" I ask. "Lena," she says, eyes wide. "Lena," I repeat. "Thank you. And if anyone tries to cage you, you come find me. Understand?" Her throat bobs. She nods, eyes shining. Kael's gaze warms, but he says nothing until we step through the side doors into a quieter corridor. The hush out here is almost startling after the clamor of the hall. My shoulders sag, tension draining now that the immediate storm has passed. "You did well," he says softly. "I nearly vomited on your counsel," I mutter. "That would have been amusing, actually." His mouth quirks. Then his expression grows serious. "You meant what you said? About protecting them. The Omegas." I think of Lena's too tight leather cord, of my own years behind the ice wall. "How could I not?" I say. "If the moon goddess went to all the trouble of shoving me into your path, I doubt it was so I could sit quietly on a throne and smile at festivals." He huffs a laugh. "You will upend this kingdom. Is that a complaint?" "Not at all." His fingers brush mine again, light and tentative. "Elara, thank you. For choosing this. For choosing me." Emotion grows thick in my chest. "You talk as if I had much choice," I say lightly. "The bond feels fairly insistent." "It is," he agrees, sobering. "But mate bonds can be twisted. Coerced. You could have chosen to hate me for not finding you sooner." I look at him, really look, at the faint lines of strain around his eyes, the scar along his jaw, the way his shoulders carry both strength and weariness. He has ruled a kingdom alone, believing himself cursed, while I grew up believing myself an unwanted threat. Two halves of a bond taught to blame themselves. "I might still hate you a little," I admit. "But I also like your stubbornness." He smiles then, bright and unguarded, and my heart does an unhelpful flip. "I will take that," he says. "For now." The royal wing smells different from the rest of the castle. Less smoke, more beeswax and pine resin. There's a quiet here, a tension turned inward instead of outward. Servants move like shadows along the corridors, bowing quickly as Kael passes. Their eyes flick to me with open curiosity. Gossip will race through the staff passageways faster than any official decree. We stop before a heavy door carved with crescent moons and wolves. Kael hesitates, hand on the latch. "These were my parents' chambers," he says. "They've been mine since they died. I had preparations made years ago for the day my mate might arrive, but," he huffs softly, "I did not anticipate her stepping straight out of a tower." "Nobody expects the Omega behind the ice wall," I murmur. His lips twitch. "No. They don't?" He pushes the door open. The room inside is warm, lit by a crackling fire and an enormous stone hearth. Thick furs cover the floor, and a massive bed sits against one wall, strewn with blankets in shades of deep blue and silver. Tall windows look out over the forest, their panes currently fogged with warmth and snow outside. It smells like Kael, pine, winter, and something distinctly him. I stop just inside the threshold, overwhelmed. "I can have separate chambers prepared for you," he says quickly, mistaking my pause. "This is... I know it may be too much, too soon. The bond is one thing, comfort is another. I would not force..." "Kael," I interrupt, turning back to him. "I've slept in a tower cell my entire life, with frost dripping from the ceiling and a straw mattress that smells like mold. This is..." My throat tightens. It's like walking into a story I used to tell myself to stay sane. His shoulders relax slightly. "Then stay," he says. "If you wish." I step further in, fingers brushing the carved posts of the bed, the edge of a soft fur rug. My wolf presses against my skin, sighing at the warmth. A smaller door near the hearth likely leads to a washing room. Another stands ajar to reveal a private balcony. I don't know how to live like a queen, I admit. Or a Luna. I'll probably trip over some formal rule and insult a noble's aunt before breakfast. Good, he says. Some of them need insulting. I huff a laugh, then sobering, glance back at him. What happens now? Now, he says, you rest. Eat. Warm up. Let your wolf breathe under an open sky from that balcony if you can't wait for our run. At dawn, we face the pack council again, to plan for the blood moon gathering and the rival alphas. After that, his jaw tightens. After that, things get harder. Because of the prophecy? I ask. Because of everything. He rubs a hand over his face, suddenly looking very young and very old at once. They will test this bond. They will question your loyalty, your bloodline, your purpose. They will try to use you against me. And somewhere out there, at least one rival alpha is already plotting how to claim you or kill you to weaken my rule. A chill runs through me that has nothing to do with snow. I won't be their weapon, I say. I know. His gaze sharpens, wolf bright. That is why we train, strategize, and stay 3 steps ahead. You are not a lamb they can drag onto an altar, Elara. You are the Luna, the moon goddess hid in ice. You will be ready when they come. There's a fierceness in his voice that stirs something matching in me. I have spent my life surviving quietly. Perhaps it's time to learn how to survive loudly. I'll hold you to that, I say. He nods toward a side table where a tray has been laid out. Steaming stew, thick bread, a pot of something that smells like spiced tea. Eat, he says. I'll speak with Roran and set the guard rotations around this wing. No one comes near you without my leave. Overprotective already? I tease, trying to hide the flicker of comfort his words bring. I nearly lost 20 years with you, he replies, eyes intent. Forgive me if I guard the years left like a wolf with a bone. Heat flushes my cheeks again. I look away, pretending to examine the tea. He moves toward the door, then pauses. Elara. Yes? If the bond pulls at you while I'm gone, if you feel anxious or overwhelmed, step out onto the balcony. Look at the moon. Remember that we are tied by more than walls and courts and laws. I will feel it. I will come. The sincerity in his voice catches me off guard. I will, I say softly. He leaves, the door closing with a quiet click that feels oddly gentle for such a large man. Alone for the first time since the ice wall fell, I sink onto the edge of the bed and let out a shuddering breath. My muscles slowly unclench, one by one, as warmth seeps into bones long accustomed to cold. The bond hums under my skin, a soft, steady pulse, like a distant heartbeat. The kingdom is already changing. The prophecy is already unwinding. And somewhere beneath the snow-laden pines, rogue wolves and rival alphas lift their noses, catching the scent of upheaval. I press a hand to my still-glowing bond mark and whisper, to myself and to the moon goddess both. I was born behind ice. But I will not die there. Sleep comes in fragments. Every time I close my eyes I see ice, walls rising, cracking, falling in slow, glittering avalanches. Sometimes Kael stands on the other side, hand outstretched. Sometimes he is gone, and only the moon goddess's crescent hangs there, sharp as a blade. When I finally give up on rest, the fire has burned low. The bond hums gently under my skin, a soft awareness of Kael somewhere deeper in the castle, tired, alert, alive. I wrap a fur around my shoulders and drift to the balcony, drawn by the pull of cold air and open sky. The forest lies dark and quiet beneath the crescent moon. Without the ice wall between us, the scents hit me full force: pine, smoke, distant wolves patrolling the outer ring. For 20 years I tasted only thin, weakened versions of these smells, filtered through wards and frost. Now the world feels raw and overwhelming. My wolf presses against my ribs. Shift, she urges. Just for a breath. We belong out there. I hesitate, fingers tightening on the railing. Shifting in the Frostkeep was always a desperate, cramped thing, circling a tiny cell until my claws threatened to scrape stone. Out here there is space. Height. A fall I cannot quite make myself forget. He is here, my wolf whispers. The bond will catch us if we slip. I exhale, let go. Bones ripple and reset with the quiet intimacy I've known since childhood. Fur spreads over skin, pale as frost. When I blink my eyes open again, the world has sharpened, every gust of wind a layered story, every shadow a clear outline. The cold is a kiss instead of a knife. I step onto the balcony's edge, claws scraping stone, and lift my nose to the sky. Kael's scent hits me almost at once. He's in the courtyard below, speaking with Roran, their voices a low rumble I can't quite make out. Even from this height, I can see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand rests unconsciously near the knife at his belt. He tilts his head, as if sensing my gaze, and his silver eyes find me in the dark. For a heartbeat, we simply stare at each other, Alpha King on the snow, Luna on a high ledge. Then he smiles, slow and startled, like he's seeing a miracle he doesn't quite dare touch. He shrugs off his cloak and lets it fall into the snow. A ripple travels through him. His body folds and explodes outward, armor dissolving into muscle and fur. His wolf stands huge and dark in the courtyard, breath steaming, eyes gleaming like coins. He throws back his head and howls. The sound hits me like a blow and an embrace all at once. It vibrates through my bones, through the tower stones, through the pact bond itself. It isn't a command. It's a call. My wolf doesn't ask permission. We leap. The fall lasts forever and no time at all. Air roars past my ears. Snow rushes up in a white blur. My paws hit the ground harder than I expect, shock jolting up my legs, but I stay upright. Kael's wolf is already there, circling me once, brushing his flank along mine in a wordless check. Are you hurt? Are you here? I snap playfully at his shoulder, more exhilarated than frightened. He huffs, amused, then spins and bolts toward the open gate like a streak of shadow. We run. The courtyard vanishes behind us, guards flattening themselves against walls as we shoot past. Beyond the gate, the forest opens like a secret. Snow-deep paths, dark trunks, the sharp silver smear of the crescent moon through bare branches. My paws pound the ground, lungs burning with cold and joy. I have run before, but only in circles. This is a straight line toward everything. Kael leads, but not so far ahead that I can't keep him in sight. When he veers left, I feel the decision a heartbeat in advance through the bond and follow almost without thinking. Our movements sync in a way that has nothing to do with practice and everything to do with destiny. We burst into a clearing ringed with pines. In the center lies a pond crusted with ice, surface smooth and black, reflecting the moon like a fallen coin. Kael slows, then shifts, for folding back into skin. He stands naked in the snow, utterly unconcerned, breath steaming in glowing clouds. Here, he says, voice rough with run and cold. This was my father's place. His father's before him. Where they taught their pups to shift, to howl, to survive. I always thought I'd bring my mate here first. He looks at me, and for once there's no alpha steel in his gaze, only a man feeling the edges of a long-held dream. I shift back, the snow biting my bare feet. He steps forward at once, draping his cloak over my shoulders, fingers careful as they brush my hair away from my face. I'm sorry you learned to shift in a cell, he says quietly. I would take that from you if I could. I would take a few things from your past too, I say. The blood. The empty throne. The lies. He huffs out something like a laugh, then sobers. This is what we have, he says, gesturing around the clearing. A kingdom with cracks. A prophecy with teeth. Two wolves trying to decide if they can rewrite both. And a pond, I say. Don't forget the pond. His mouth curves. And a pond. I step closer to the frozen surface, studying our reflections, two figures wrapped in fur and moonlight, bond marks pulsing faintly at wrists and throats. The ice wall's ghost feels far away out here. The tower could almost have been a bad dream. Almost. How many rival alphas will come for the blood moon gathering? I ask, eyes still on the ice. 3 we're certain of, Kael says. Garen of Iron Fang, who wants land and omegas in equal measure. Saria of Red Claw, who wants respect and hasn't forgiven me for winning our last border quarrel. And Kellen of Ashridge, who wants to back whichever side keeps his coffers full. And all have heard rumors of the hidden Omega. I say. It would be stranger if they hadn't. He agrees. Walls aren't the only things that carry sound in this kingdom. Wolves gossip. Fear stirs under my ribs, but it's a quieter thing than it used to be, easier to look in the eye. Then we show them what prophecy looks like when it bites the right throats. I say. He studies me for a long moment, moonlight catching the silver in his eyes. You truly mean to stand beside me in the hall? In front of them all? I turn from the pond, cloak whispering around my legs. I was born behind an ice wall because they were afraid to let me stand anywhere. I say. If I hide now, it will be like agreeing they were right. He steps close enough that I can feel the heat radiating from his skin. They were not right, he says, each word carved. They were cowards. His hand finds mine. Our bond marks flare where our fingers touch. The blood moon gathering will not be safe, he warns softly. Garen will test every weakness. Saria will watch every flinch. Even some of my own council will hope you fail so they can drag me back into their comfort. Then we don't flinch, I say. We bleed if we must, but we don't flinch. A muscle jumps in his jaw. I don't like the word bleed in your mouth. Prophecy used it first. I remind him. We don't get to ignore it just because it makes you growl. I growl at many things. He mutters. You've noticed. I squeeze his hand. We still have time before they arrive. I say. Teach me how to move in your world, Kael. Not as a ghost, not as a symbol. As your Luna. He inhales sharply, breath misting between us. Very well, he says. We'll start with the council chamber in the mornings, the training yard in the afternoons. And at night. His mouth curves, a little wicked. We'll let the bond decide. Heat flares under my skin, chased quickly by a laugh. Bossy, I say. Alpha, he corrects. Luna, I counter, and the way his eyes darken at that word makes the cold night suddenly feel much warmer. We run back to the castle side by side. The ice wall does not sing that night. The bond does. The days that follow blur into a new kind of routine. Morning finds me at Kael's right hand in the council chamber, maps spread across the long table like a second skin for the kingdom. I learn the names of border villages, the routes of trade caravans, the places where rogue packs tend to slip through like smoke. I listen as Kael and Roran debate patrol schedules, as elders grumble about a pending tradition, as Morel mutters about omens in her tea. I don't speak much at first. When I do, the room tilts, surprised. You're assuming Iron Fang will strike from the north, I say one morning, tracing a finger along a different line on the map. But if Garen thinks you're expecting that, why wouldn't he send a smaller force here instead? I tap a valley that narrows like a throat between two ridges. Close enough to rattle us, not enough to start a war. He likes rattling. Roran's brows rise. She's right, he says. He's done it before to Oak Ridge. Probes the edges, watches how you respond, learns your rhythms. Kael's mouth curves, pleased. Shift our scouts, he says. Quietly. I'd rather we watch him watching us. In the afternoons, the council gives way to the training yard. Roran and a rotating cast of warriors knock me into the snow over and over until my limbs ache and my lungs burn. I learn to fight with staff, with short blades, with my own body when nothing else is at hand. Kael sometimes joins, which is infuriating. He moves like water over stone, every strike effortless, every block precise. You're pulling your blows, I pant after one particularly lopsided spar. I am, he says shamelessly. Stop it, I snap. If a rival alpha tries to rip my throat out, he won't be gentle. Don't make training kinder than reality. A muscle ticks in his jaw. For a moment, I think he will refuse. Then he nods once. Very well, he says quietly. Again. The next bout leaves a spectacular bruise on my thigh and a split lip I can taste for hours. It also leaves a fierce, exhausted pride in my chest. At night, politics and bruises give way to softer things. Sometimes we share simple meals in front of the hearth, talking about nothing important, how he used to sneak out of the castle as a boy to race his wolf along the river bank, how I counted guards' footsteps to mark time in the Frostkeep. Sometimes we sit in companionable silence, the crackle of fire and the steady hum of the bond saying enough. We don't complete the bond yet. The bite at my throat waits, a promise and a danger both. Morel's warnings about cost still curl like smoke at the edges of my thoughts. Kael is in no rush. If anything, he seems determined to give me as much time as possible to choose him freely, even though fate already made the choice long ago. We'll seal it when the blood moon has come and gone, he says one evening, thumb drawing lazy circles over my wrist. When we've shown the packs what we are together. Not as a gesture to them, but as a promise to ourselves. On our terms, I echo. On our terms, he agrees. The closer the blood moon gathering draws, the heavier the air feels. Messengers arrive bearing news, Iron Fawn camps appearing closer to our border than etiquette allows, Red Claw scouts seen slipping through neutral territory, smaller packs asking nervous questions about our new Omega laws. Garen's name surfaces in every conversation like a stain. 3 nights before the gathering begins, a messenger arrives from the north, half-frozen and wild-eyed. Rogue attack near the Iron Fawn line. He gasps in the council chamber, snow melting in his hair. Not on our side, on theirs. A scouting party torn apart. Garen's wolves say they smelled crescent moon on the wind. Halvar swivels toward Kael, pouncing. There, he says. He will blame you. Claim you sent rogues to weaken him before the gathering. I didn't, Kael says, voice flat. Truth and what others choose to believe are rarely the same, Morel murmurs. I stare at the map, at the red marks Roran adds to show where the attack took place. What if someone wants you and Garen at each other's throats before the blood moon? I ask. Another pack. Or a rogue alpha. If you're busy fighting each other, they could carve pieces from both of you. Roran groans. I hate clever enemies. I much prefer the stupid ones. Kael's eyes narrow. Double patrols on that border, he orders. But no retaliation. If Garen wants to accuse us, let him come to our hall and do it in front of every pack. He looks at me. Our bond thrums with unspoken worry. We'll give him his stage, I say. And we'll choose how the story ends. The blood moon gathering arrives wrapped in snow and tension. By dusk, the castle grounds have transformed. Tents sprout like strange, colorful mushrooms in the outer courtyard, each bearing the banner of a visiting pack. Fires crackle, sending sparks into the darkening sky. Wolves move through the chaos, some shifting back to human form for feasting, others staying furred, eyes gleaming in the torchlight. From the balcony of the throne hall, I watched packs arrive. Iron Fawn first, of course. Garen knows the power of dramatic entry. He rides in at the head of his warriors on a massive gray-brown wolf, cloak of crimson fur flaring behind him, scars gleaming along his jaw. The air seems to chill around him even more. Red Claw arrives next, sleek and sharp. Alpha Saria dismounts from her horse with feline grace, winter-red hair braided in intricate patterns, her warriors moving with a predator's ease. She takes in everything, the walls, the guards, the crowd, with a glance that misses nothing. Smaller packs follow, some familiar to Crescent Moon, others new. Each alpha watches Kael closely when he comes to greet them in the courtyard. Each glances at me with varying degrees of curiosity, suspicion, or open awe. Let them look, Kael murmurs at my side. They've spent 20 years trading stories about the hidden Omega who would break their laws. They deserve to see she has a face. Not a particularly terrifying one, I say dryly. He huffs. You terrify them more than you know. That night, the feast in the throne hall is a performance and a test. Kael and I walk in together, hand in hand, bond marks visible. The hall falls briefly silent, then surges with whispers. We take our places on the raised dais, the Alpha King's chair and the Luna's seat beside it. I feel their eyes like heat on my skin, measuring, weighing, hoping I will falter. Servants bring food, roasted venison, spiced root vegetables, dark bread. Musicians play soft, driving notes in the background. Conversation swirls in pockets around the room. Garen wastes no time. Alpha King, he calls loudly once the first course is done. The North sends its regards. And its questions. Kael's expression remains mild. Ask, he says. Who commands the rogues that tore my patrol apart? Garen asks. Who sent them so conveniently near our shared border, just days before we meet under the blood moon? Kael's jaw tightens. Not I, he says. I have enough to manage without sending wild dogs to nip at your heels. Laughter ripples around the hall, mostly from smaller packs. Garen's smile does not reach his eyes. You expect us to believe that? He presses. When word spreads of your changes, your soft flaws, your Omega sitting on a throne instead of in the birthing houses. Perhaps you thought chaos at my border would make others more open to your ideas. If I wanted chaos at your border, I say before I can stop myself, I wouldn't use rogues. I'd simply let you keep ruling the way you do. A dangerous hush falls. Kael's fingers squeeze mine under the table in a silent mixture of warning and pride. Saria laughs, clear and delighted. Crescent Moon's Luna has claws, she says. I approve. Garen's eyes narrow. You speak boldly for someone whose life rests on untested bonds and prophecies, he says to me. Tell me, Luna Elara, would you still look so proud if your mate bled out at your feet? The hall freezes around his words. Morel stiffens near the back, grip whitening on her staff. Something inside me goes cold and sharp. I spent 20 years behind a wall built on fear of a line in a prophecy. I say, voice moving into a stillness that isn't weakness. If you think you can frighten me with the word bleed, you haven't been listening. A faint murmur, half approval, half unease. Garen tilts his head, studying me. Then prove it, he says softly, and I understand, this is the moment he's been circling. A trial, he proposes, raising his voice for all to hear. Under the blood moon, as our ancestors once did when alliances were tested. At midnight, you and your Luna stand together in the courtyard. I send a champion. You face them as one. No trickery, no archers on the walls. Only steel, fawn, and the strength of your bond. And if we decline? Kael asks quietly. Garen shrugs. Then we leave tomorrow and tell every pack between here and the coast that Crescent Moon's Alpha King hides behind prophecies and Omegas when blood is called for. That your new laws exist only because you fear a simple duel. Saria's eyes glitter. She says nothing, but her attention sharpens. I feel Kael's tension through the bond, the war between king and mate, between the instinct to protect me and the knowledge that refusing will cost us more in the long run than any wound. I also feel something else, anger, not at Garen, but at the years I spent as everyone's unspoken excuse to do nothing. If you send a champion, I say, they come without collars. Without bindings. Without tricks. Agreed, Garen says at once, too quickly. Kael turns to me, low enough that only I hear. Elara. If we refuse, he wins already. I murmur. If we accept, we at least choose how we stand. His eyes search mine, silver bright with worry. You could die. So could you. I say. That's been true since the moment you tore down the ice wall. I would rather die fighting beside you than grow old wondering if fear wrote our story. Silence stretches between us. Then, slowly, he nods. We accept, Kael says, voice steady. The hall exhales in a rush of whispers and sharp-edged excitement. Garen smiles like a man who has finally nudged a piece into the perfect place on a game board. Midnight then, he says. Under the blood moon. May the moon goddess favor the brave. Or the cruel, I think, but keep it to myself. The hours between the feast and midnight pass in a blur of preparation. In the training yard, under torches that spit and hiss against falling snow, Roran runs us through tight, brutal drills. Not to teach new techniques. There's no time, but to stitch together what we already know into something seamless. Think as one body, he barks. Two halves, one spine. If Kael moves forward, Elara, you cover his blind side. If she faints, you drive. If one of you falls, the other buys enough time to drag them back up. Sweat stings my eyes, despite the cold. My ribs ache from a hit earlier in the evening. Kael's cheek already blooms a dark bruise. Fear rides us both, but it sharpens instead of dulling. Morel watches from the shadows, lips moving soundlessly. I don't know if she's praying or arguing with the moon goddess. Prophecy said throne and wolf would bleed, she says suddenly when we pass near her. It did not say they would die. Remember that. Comforting, Kael mutters. When the castle bells toll once, then twice, the sky overhead has gone a deep, bruised red. The blood moon hangs swollen and low, painting snow and stone in shades of wine and rust. It's time, Roran says. The courtyard is already ringed with wolves and humans when we step out. Torches throw wild, dancing light across the packed snow. Banners ripple along the walls, crescent moon's silver crescent, iron fangs red, red claws deep rust, the colors of smaller packs. The air hums with something like hunger. Kael and I step into the center of the cleared circle. My spear feels heavier than usual in my hand. His sword gleams like a shard of night. At the far edge, Garen stands with his warriors, Saria at his side. As agreed, he calls, voice carrying. One champion. He gestures, and a figure steps from his ranks. It is not a hulking brute, not the massive warrior everyone expects. It is a woman. Tall, lean, hair cropped close to her head, eyes sharp and oddly flat. A collar of plain iron sits around her throat. Cold fury floods me. No collars, I say through my teeth. You promised. Garen's smile is thin. It is not enchanted, he says smoothly. A symbol only. She wears it willingly. Don't you, little wolf? The woman's jaw tightens. She nods once, mechanically. Morel sucks in a breath. He lies, she murmurs behind us. There's a binding on it. Subtle, but there. He thinks we can't see. Kael's shoulders tense. Through the bond one feel his rage like heat. This trial is tainted, he says loudly. You break guest law, Garen. You make a weapon of an unwilling Omega. The word ripples through the crowd, Omega. Some wolves shift uneasily, others lean forward, hungry for spectacle. Garen spreads his hands. I offered fair terms. You agreed. If you fear to face a single fighter, say so now, and we will all know what sort of alpha you truly are. The trap is complete. If we step back, Garen wins the story. If we step forward, we risk becoming executioners of a bound woman. I look at her, really look. Beneath the flatness in her eyes, there's a flicker. Not fear exactly. Something like apology. I'm sorry, I whisper, knowing she can't hear, and then I move. Stay with me, Kael murmurs, falling into step beside me. We enter the circle together. The Omega, Garen's weapon, raises her hands empty. Then, with a twist of her fingers, claws sprout from her nails. Not a full shift. Something in between, forced and ugly. The collar at her throat glows faintly. She'll kill herself fighting like that, Morel hisses. Her body isn't built to channel that much power. So Garen wins either way, our blood or hers. Change the game, my wolf whispers. The Omega charges. She's terrifyingly fast, a blur of nails and teeth and unnatural strength. I barely get my spear up in time to deflect her first strike. Pain flares along my forearm where a claw grazes skin. Kael meets her next attack head-on, sword ringing against half-shifted bone. She doesn't cry out. She doesn't snarl. She moves like a puppet on strings. "Break the collar," I gasp between blows. "We have to break it." "Easier said than done," Kael grunts, blocking another swipe. We fall into the rhythm we honed in the yard, heavier strikes from him, quick distractions from me, trying to edge closer to her throat without leaving an opening that will gut us. The crowd roars with each near hit, bloodlust rising. "I can't get close enough," I pant. "She's too." A blow catches me in the ribs, throwing me sideways. Snow slams into my shoulder, my spear skitters out of reach. I roll, breath knocked from my lungs, vision flashing white. "Elara!" Kael's shout cuts through the din. The Omega lunges for me, collar flaring. I don't think. I move. I surge up under her guard, ignoring the claws that rake shallow furrows along my side, and grab the iron band with both hands. Magic slams into me like a fist. It burns along my arms, searing veins, racing toward my heart. I scream, but I don't let go. The bond mark on my wrist flares, answering the magic with its own wild light. "Kael!" I choke. "Now!" He understands without another word. He drops his sword, grabs my wrists, and pours everything he is into the link: alpha power, pact bond, the stubborn refusal to obey any law but his own. For one breathless heartbeat, it feels like we are three hearts beating in a single chest. Mine, his, and the Omega's trapped between us. Then the collar shatters. The explosion of power knocks all three of us apart. I hit the snow hard, pain flaring down my back. The world tilts, edges blurring. Magic screams through the courtyard, lashing out in jagged arcs. One slams into Kael, throwing him backward into the circle's edge. Another hits Garen himself. He staggers with a snarl, eyes going wide as the backlash bites. The Omega, no longer bound, falls to her knees, hands flying to her throat. The skin there is raw, but unmarked by iron. Her eyes, when she blinks up, are clear for the first time, green and gold and furious. "I didn't choose this," she spits hoarsely. "You forced me." Every gaze swings to Garen. For a heartbeat, the Iron Fang Alpha looks like a man who has misjudged a cliff's height just as he leaps. Then the courtyard erupts. "What have you done?" Saria demands, her voice cutting through the rising clamor like a blade. "Collars. Bindings. On an Omega. At a gathering. You spit on guest law and the moon goddess both." "She volunteered," Garen snarls. I did not," the woman snaps, stumbling to her feet. "You threatened my sister. Said you'd sell her to Ashridge if I refused." Gasps. Some of Garen's own wolves look away, shame creeping across their faces. Kael pushes himself up slowly, shaking off snow. Blood trickles from one corner of his mouth, but he stands. The bond between us hums, frayed but unbroken. The blast hurt him, but not as badly as it could have. I stagger to his side. He catches my elbow without looking, eyes locked on Garen. "Your trial is finished," Kael says, voice low and deadly calm. "We still stand. Your champion stands. The only one bleeding honor tonight is you." Roran steps into the circle, sword drawn. "Under the laws of the Blood Moon Gathering," he says loudly, "using bound magic on an unwilling participant is grounds for exile and challenge. You overstepped, Garen." Saria's lips curl. "I would hate to see the moon goddess's response if we pretended we hadn't noticed," she says. "Red Law will not stand beside a pack that collars its Omegas like livestock." One by one, other alphas speak. Ashridge's Kellen, usually slippery as an eel, actually looks uneasy. "My traders will not cross your territory if this is how you treat your own," he says reluctantly. It's bad for business when customers fear they'll leave with less freedom than they arrived with. Garen's face darkens. His hand goes to his weapon. And half the courtyard moves. Crescent moon warriors raise blades. Red claw shifters bare teeth. Even two of Iron Fang's own step subtly away from their alpha, unwilling to be his shield this time. The air crackles with the threat of battle. Kael lifts a hand. Not here, he says. Not tonight. The blood moon has had enough. His gaze pins Garen. You will take what remains of your honor and leave, he says. You will remove every collar from every Omega in Ironfang lands, or you will lose them to packs who will protect them. And you will remember that you walked into my courtyard to show my people I was weak and left having proved that you are. Garen laughs once, harsh and bitter. Do you think this is over, Icewall King? He spits, bleeding from a cut above his eye. You cannot change centuries with one act of defiance. No, Kael says. But tonight is a start. For a long, measured heartbeat, Garen weighs his chances. Then, slowly, he lowers his weapon. This isn't over, he says, but it lacks the earlier certainty. The world will not bend just because you found your pretty Luna behind a wall. Perhaps not, I say, voice steady despite the tremble in my limbs. But it will move. He turns on his heel and stalks from the courtyard, his warriors flowing after him. A few lag, casting uncertain looks back, the seeds of future fractures, perhaps. The Ironfang banner comes down from the wall before Garen is even through the gates. Silence settles, thick, stunned, buzzing with the sense that something irreversibly important has just happened. Then the Omega we freed, still breathing hard, blood staining her collarbones, steps into the center of the circle and bows her head to Kael and me. My name is Tessa, she says, voice raw but clear. If you'll have me, I'd like to stay. Here. Where collars are broken, not fastened. My throat tightens. You are welcome, Kael says at once. As pack if you wish. As guest if you're not ready. But never again as property. Her eyes shine. Pack, she whispers. Around the courtyard, other Omegas stand a little straighter. Morel moves to my side, pressing cool fingers to the back of my scorched hands. You could have killed her, she says quietly. Ended the trial by spilling one woman's blood. I've spent too long being the woman others were willing to spill, I say. I won't make her another. She studies me for a long moment, then sighs. The prophecy is quieter, she murmurs. As if a knot loosened. Not undone, but changed. Throne and wolf bled, I say softly, glancing at Kael's bruised jaw and the blood drying on my arm. But we're still standing. Yes, she says. You are. The crowd begins to shift, relief bubbling under the lingering adrenaline. Some wolves cheer, others simply sag, as if a weight they didn't know they carried has eased. Saria catches my eye across the courtyard and offers a small, almost genuine nod. Well played, her gaze says. Let's see what you do next. Later, in the quiet of our chambers, after healers have smeared salve on burns and Roran has sworn at us fondly for scaring him half to death, Kael and I stand on the balcony again. The blood moon is fading, bleeding back into silver. You shattered another wall tonight, he says, voice low. So did you, I answer. We didn't swing at Garen when we could have. We chose law over immediate revenge. Are you disappointed? He asks wryly. I shake my head. No. We showed them what justice looks like when it isn't afraid of change. That's harder than drawing a sword. He falls quiet, watching the moon. The bond feels different, he says after a moment. Stronger. As if that blast burned away whatever distance we were pretending still existed. We keep waiting, I say. For the right moment to seal it fully. For prophecy to stop snarling. For the kingdom to be a little less fragile. I turn to face him, heart hammering. Maybe there is no right moment. Maybe there is only choosing each other in the middle of the mess. His eyes search mine, silver bright, raw with feeling. Elara, he says. Born behind ice. Walked through fire. Stubborn enough to argue with gods. His hand lifts to my cheek, thumb brushing a smudge of dried blood. Will you stay? Not as secret, not as symbol. As Luna. As my mate. I laugh, a little helpless. I already have. I say. But yes. I'll say it as many times as you need. He leans in. The kiss is softer than the trial, gentler than the blast of magic, but it carries all of it, the fear, the fury, the fragile, wild hope. When we finally part, breathless, the last stain of red has faded from the moon. Down in the courtyard, I hear a lone wolf howl. Another answers. Then another. The sound rises, layered and strong, our pack announcing itself to the night, still here, still changing, still choosing something new. I rest my head against Kael's shoulder, watching the silver light spill over the kingdom. I was born behind the ice wall, I say quietly. But I won't be remembered for it. No, he agrees, pressing his lips to my hair. You'll be remembered for the walls you broke. And together, Alpha King and Hidden Omega, bond-bound under a healing moon, we stand and watch as a kingdom, slowly, begins to thaw. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and comment what part you loved the most. More Alpha and Omega stories are coming very soon. Sleep well, and I'll see you in the next one.